What up, perps? Kid Copious. Back in effect. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here. Repping America, the center, common sense, and the W, women. Their rights are under attack from both sides, and that's one of the things that pisses me off the most. We don't need to get in depth. You know what's going on. You read the headlines and you see it. But it's time that we start putting women first again and stop trying to erode their rights using guilt and fucking woke bullshit. Anyhow, there's a lot this week, so let's get to it before I forget what we're going to say. All right, before we get down to business, I wanted to start with something funny that I found. The View star Sunny Holston in shock as Finding Your Roots reveals family-owned slaves. You know, she's one of those white, although she didn't think she was so white, liberals who just wants to badmouth white people and basically blame white people for all the sins of the world and blah, 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 blah. But she found out she was really only 7% Puerto Rican. As she said, I didn't think my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders. But on the show, they did the genealogy, and her fourth great-grandfather was a merchant who was likely involved in the slave trade and owned at least one human being. Well, see, first of all, if you weren't such a liberal who was so swayed by this made-up guilt that you're supposed to feel, you wouldn't care. Fourth great-grandfather? I knew my grandfather. Both of them. One was an electrician in Washington, and one fought World War I for the Italians before immigrating here. I don't take responsibility for their actions, but people like Sunny here do, so this came as quite a shock. And she went on to say that her mother certainly identifies as Puerto Rican and non-white, and that she hates this for her mom as a result. The quotes on here, I don't know who the fuck edited this thing. Well, Gates, the host of the show, said, well, she's going to see how deeply white she is. Again, if you're ashamed of being white, then you need to check yourself, okay? You need to do better by yourself, because the sins of the past are the sins of the past. It's not my past. I'm not responsible for what people did back then. And I don't judge history based on modern day values, because it's fucking stupid. And Sunny now has to deal with this shattering revelation because she starts off the game fragile. You can't allow these liberals to sway you by guilt, okay? Each individual should be doing the best they can. And that's all that can be asked of you. Let's move on to some more fun stuff. One of the reasons why I'm not a big Trump supporter is because I think he's fractured the Republicans. Maybe that's a good thing ultimately. Maybe we'll get a more moderate conservative party out of the Republicans. I'm not sure, but, this week they shot down the border bill. Fine, great. I'm not going to get into that. We have laws that say you can't come across our border. Just enforce them. It's quite simple. We don't need another bill. But I was really upset that they couldn't get Mayorkas on an impeachment trial, because Mayorkas, who is in charge of the border, has failed. His policies have failed. And, he was going to be held accountable. I don't know what that would have turned out to be, but Trump kind of stepped in and the Republicans changed it. But now we got to get to the important stuff of the week, the Super Bowl. We got the 49ers and the Chiefs. And let me tell you something. You might not know this about me, but I used to be a decent-sized gambler, okay? Usually other people's money, because if my brother watches this, he's going to be like, you always play with other people's money. But for me, it was more just trying to be right. The money aspect really didn't matter. But all that being said, let's look at the line and go through this here. Right now, the money line, which is basically just this team will win, it'll cost you $130 to make 100 on the Niners. Or if you put up 100, you'll get back 110 on the Chiefs. I personally like the Chiefs, and I personally like that over there. Over-under, for those of you who don't know, is they set a level, and if the score goes above it, the combined score goes above it or below it. The over, the under. Makes sense. And I'll tell you why I like the over. This is possibly one of the most pop culture Super Bowls we've ever had. Now, we'll go through it. You of course, you have Christian McCaffrey. A lot of people know him, stuff about his wife or his girlfriend, blah, 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 blah. Brock Purdy, the man that nobody wanted. And, of course, with the Chiefs, you have Taylor Swift. Pretty big pop culture reference right there, right? Now, I'm not accusing the NFL of cheating, but it is common knowledge among people who are into football that there is basically a penalty on every single play. Whether or not that penalty gets called is up to the referees. Now, I'm pretty sure that with all the eyeballs that are going to be on the Super Bowl, this will be the biggest Super Bowl ever. I think the average non-football fan doesn't want to see a 10-7 defensive slugfest. They want to see scoring every 4 minutes. They want to see Taylor Swift high-fiving people. They want to see Brock Purdy getting it done. McCaffrey up the middle. They want to see this for the touchdown. This is what they want to see. And I think the refs are going to play an influence on it. That's why, I mean, if you're taking gambling advice at this late stage, I would take the Chiefs on the money line because I think they're going to win. And I would take the over of 47.5. I don't think the point spread is going to play into it. 2 points, that's less than a field goal. So that's my Super Bowl picks. Let's check back and, let me know what you think down in the comments if you bet any money. That would be cool. I'd love it if somebody bet this and won. So, one of the big things that came out this week was the Joe Biden classified document scandal. Lots of presidents do sketchy shit with the documents, so I don't really care that nothing happened. But what was important was that the report from her said that he was basically a dottery, old, elderly man who forgot things and they would not be able to convict him based on that. Babylon Bee sums it up. Man ruled too senile to stand trial, still fine to run country. Well, I think we're starting to see that that's not true. Harris here slams the Her report as gratuitous and defends Biden amid memory concerns. Yeah, I would say she's a fucking idiot. So an idiot saying that another idiot is smart really doesn't hold much water. But she should know, as a former DA, that when a special counsel or anybody files or doesn't, files his paperwork, they're required to file, they have to explain why charges should be pursued or why charges should just be dropped. And in his explanation, Robert Hur basically said Biden can just claim, I don't have a good memory, I forgot I had them. Good enough defense, no sense going to trial. So he didn't put that in there necessarily to slam Biden. That's the reason why Biden's not going to stand trial. It makes perfect sense to me. It's the same thing if somebody defended keeping the documents because they had closed that office and did not realize that they had stored boxes up in the attic. It's a defense. And if somebody has a decent defense, you're not going to pursue charges. And for Biden, his defense is, I forgot. But it shines a light on his forgetfulness, his lying. The fact that he is really acting like he has dementia. But as usual, the Democrats are going to double down. Democrats urge president to go on public blitz to combat age concern. The Democrats had a forceful message for the Biden campaign amid the special counsel report fallout. It's time to flood the zone. Flood the zone. That's a football team term. I guess it could be a basketball term too. Sports term. Hey, whatever. Top party operatives are warning Biden aides that the president cannot retreat in response to the special counsel's report that feel concern over his age and mental faculties. We all know he's hiding Biden. I mean, that's how he got through the last election. He hid away. They give the guy a cocktail of medication to get him through some of his speeches. You can't. They're talking about they want to see him engage with the press and voters in the off-script and punchy exchanges that he's been known for in the past. They say that it's worth the risk of potential slip-ups, that could reinforce the image that he's declining. He's declining. They're not going to be able to accomplish what they think they're going to accomplish. Nobody's going to see this guy as young and vital. And it's getting to be too late to replace him. But I still think that what they can do at their convention is just simply slip a name in. They can go against the voters. I mean, they have. Gavin Newsom went against the voters when he outlawed the death penalty. George Gascon went against the voters when he said no more enhancements. So these politicians, and on both sides of it, I mean, did Abbott or DeSantis go to the voters when they outlawed abortion? No. These politicians will do what they're going to do. And unfortunately for us, Joe Biden is being puppet mastered by a bunch of evil fucks. That's why he needs to go. He's too senile to stand up to his handlers. So the other day, something really monumental happened that is not going to get much attention. As Rush Limbaugh said, nobody gives a shit about the deficit. That was a paraphrase. I'm sure he didn't say it that way. But the other day, our debt interest rose to $870 billion per year. What we spend on the military per year is $850 billion. The national debt interest alone is now our highest expenditure. And that's just the interest, folks. That's not the principal. The credit card is not being paid down. It's just the interest. And there is blame to go around on both sides, of course. Here at Purple State, I'm looking at the totality of these parties. The elites, the rulers. I don't care what letter you have next to your name. We need to do something about this because this is going to be a ball and chain on future generations. It needs to get paid down. We need to pull back some of the foreign money. We need to pull back some of the green money. We need to pull back some of the frivolous money. I'm not one to chop into the military. The military in this country provides opportunities, jobs for not only the people in the military, but the people who build the equipment, who supply the military. A lot of this money is all across the country. Here in California, they build canopies for the F-35. I've been there. Those are jobs for people. The military is not where you make the cut. Social Security is not where you make the cut. What you need to do is rein in the reckless spending, and you need to rein in some of the money that we are sending overseas. Quite frankly, that's it. That's what we have to do. We have to pay down the debt, or our children and their children are going to be saddled with these ginormous loan payments. And we have to make these loan payments because we can't create the first ripple that takes out the world. Speaking of taking out the world. So this comes to us from the dailymail.com. Biden's net zero push to hit farmers and raise grocery bills by $1,300 a year. And they've got a graphic there that is showing the projected price spikes. Cheese up 78%. Oh, beef up 70%. Oh, that hits me right there. That's a lot of money. I mean, that is a lot of money in increases. And, I'm not against trying to clean up our act. I'm not against those windmills in the back. Those windmills need to exist with those cows. I get that. That's cool. Let's try to clean up as much as we can clean up, okay? But, just not even for the sake of the planet. I don't care about if it's man-made or natural climate change, okay? I have my opinion one way or another. We're about to get to that. But the problem is when you're going to increase our food bill by $100 a month, I know I can weather that. I know Biden and most of his sycophants, they can definitely weather that. That's not even a blip for them. They'll just give themselves a raise. Okay, I get that. The rich people, but it's the people at the bottom who are going to feel this. There are people out there, and a lot of people out there, who $100 a month, a little more than $100 a month, is going to affect them. And it's not just cheese and beef, it's everything across the board. This is for, us carnivores and the vegans and the vegetarians and the paleos, the ketos. Everybody out there is going to feel this price increase because a lot of things come from our farms. We should be protecting our farms. And we should be doing things in a fair, balanced way. And the reason they're talking about this is because diesel, propane, and fertilizer costs will rise thanks to the climate measures. And they will be pushing these onto us. Everyday basics are going to go up up almost 80% across the board. Some stuff more than others, but a family of four's annual grocery spending will go up by $1,300. And the worst part is it's based on junk fucking science. Look at this. This comes from Daily Signal, okay? Climate models exaggerate effect of global warming. What I've got up on the screen here is models versus observations, okay? Those are different studies, and they're talking about the changes in the surface temperatures in Celsius per decade, okay? It's like a timeline. It's a lot of science stuff. It's not really worth getting into. But as you notice, that blue line way at the bottom down there, that's what has actually been observed. In other words, that's what somebody put a thermometer out, and the thermometer read this number. And that blue line represents the actual number. If you look at all those different studies, those models, look how wildly off they are. Only 1 out of 34 actually matched up. One was lower, one was a little bit higher, okay? The problem is, when you're using a computer to simulate weather events, they do what's called forcing, okay? So in some models, they have introduced a large amount of fresh water into the oceans, which changes ocean temperatures. Some researchers went around and looked at a sponge out in the ocean, a little sponge, okay? And based upon that, they extrapolated data for the entire world. They based certain climate models on wild speculation. That's what you do with modeling. That's what you do, okay? You create scenarios to see what's going to happen. But these are shaping policy now. We live in a state here in California where they're going to force us to give up gas-powered vehicles and equipment. They're going to force us to do this. We have no say in the matter, and they're basing it off of models that have been manipulated and proven wrong time and time again. That's the worst part about it. That's why they changed the definition from global warming to climate change. But what makes it even worse is what we already know. Look at this. I just pulled this up really quick off of Google. The Earth's current distance from the sun is 91.7 million miles away. But in 2020, as noted earlier, the Earth's average distance is almost 93 million miles. There's changes. What? Yes, the Earth can get closer to the sun. It has an average distance. Okay? That's one thing. And then another thing, and I've mentioned this before, about the Sahara Desert was once a jungle. Well, hell, as I found out today, the Sahara Desert was once underwater. Underwater. And this is based on fossil records. This is based on something solid. It's not a computer model. It's based on findings, physical findings. In and around 2500 BCE, before the Common Era, okay, so BC, all right, before Jesus came, the monsoons retreated south and caused the Sahara to become a desert. For the past 13,000 years, it has been a desert. But according to this, every 20,000 years, the Sahara transforms into a savanna covered with lush grasses due to the what? The angle of the Earth's axis changing. So in other words, we had all of these ice ages and paleo ages and whatever other ages that are out there because of changes in the rotation of the Earth. We get closer to the sun. Different shifts mean that certain areas are getting more sun. As one area warms up, it causes the cold to move to different areas, which causes these ripple effects across the planet. Should we clean up the planet? Sure. Okay? Do it because it's the right thing to do. But we don't have any proof that we are actually causing this. What we have is that proof that the Earth itself often undergoes changes. We've not just had one ice age, we've had several ice ages. The Sahara Desert used to be underwater. There are areas that literally connect England to Germany, called Doggerland, that at one point were above water, now they're below water. Things change as the environment changes, as our rotations change. And we should be doing more to protect ourselves against those changes than bankrupting ourselves in a desperate and more than likely futile attempt to change the entire Earth's climate. We are mid a speck on this planet. I wish the Earth would tilt and knock this fucking asshole right off. George Gascon is one of the scummiest people in the world. He is a district attorney who is just a criminal. Okay? He is like all of those bad DAs you see in movies. Batman and shit like that. And then look what's right above that fucking cocksucker's picture. LA Times endorses Gascon for re-election, claims backlash to crime policies is a MAGA fairy tale. He doesn't meet with victims. He doesn't allow his prosecutors to use enhancement. Boom. That is not a fairy tale. That is fucking fact. That's who this guy is. All right? And his defense is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Like your catch and release that you've done now for 3 years. How's that working? Hey, George, are any of your ideas working, or are you doing the same thing, repeating it over and over again? One of the things that I think liberals do is they fail to understand the depth of the criminal mind. Okay? And this is one that'll show you kind of the level of the criminal mind. 3 million smart toothbrushes cause millions in damage due to denial of service attack. Not using the toothbrushes. No. They attacked a Swiss company using toothbrushes and caused millions of euros in damage after they shut down the site. This is a sign of the times. Your toothbrush is linked to an app. They got into the toothbrush and used it to attack a company. A massive DDoS attack involving more than 3 million toothbrushes infected with malware highlights the dangers of internet connection gadgets, as less powerful gadgets in particular are often not adequately prepared against malware. Because there's no patches, obviously. Nobody thought about this. But this includes home cameras, webcams, baby monitors. They can get hacked into. Look at this one down at the bottom here. This one's talking about, you basically unplug these things from the Wi-Fi. There was a recent case of a washing machine with 3.6 gigabytes of data transfers per day. Per day. Per day. That's damn near 30 gigabytes a week. And this is the level that criminals will go to, okay? Our enemies, China, our enemies, the drug dealers, the pimps, these are the levels that they will go to. They will find, just like a rat, they will find any way in. And we need to start dealing with that. Because the insanity out of these people is such that even when their ideas failed, they doubled down. They're bringing back this failure. California proposal for universal health care bans private care and doubles spending. We have a deficit in California. We can't even afford last year's budget. And these fuckers want to spend more on health care and outlaw private care. They're going to cost $391 billion per year, or $100 billion more than the entire state budget, and reduce the overall availability of health care as doctors flee to higher paying states that allow private care. They already know this is what's going to happen. If you can make $100,000 being a doctor in California, but you can make $500,000 being the same doctor in Arizona, go to Arizona. Take your money, like Otani's doing. Take your residence to Florida, set up your residence in Florida, and then rent an apartment in LA. It's cheaper. And they keep doubling down and keep doubling down. And yes, other places have this. In Canada, for example, here, let's look at this. Canada, private coverage is outlawed. So if you're rich or if you want to spend more money on your health insurance, you can't get better health insurance in Canada. The average wait time, remember that because it's more or less, from seeing a primary care doctor to getting a specialist grew to 27 weeks, almost 28 weeks. So just off the top of my head, wouldn't that be something like 7 months? I mean, not all of us can afford, better health insurance. We take what our employers give us. We pay, I pay a little bit into that, but I get mine covered. It's not the greatest, but for the most part, it works. My mom, who's older, she has her own supplements. So she could see anybody whenever she wants. She could do whatever she wants with her health care. We should be allowed to. And whether or not it makes sense, this is fucking America. You cannot tell me what insurance to have. You can't tell me what car to drive. And I'm really getting sick of telling me like what I can and can't have on my rifle, or what I can and can't do with my health. This is fucking ridiculous. And these is coming from the same people who always talk about women's reproductive rights. They put women's health, way up at the top, but then they're going to strip them of private care. If the government is only paying 75 cents for every dollar that a hospital spends, how long can the hospital remain in business? That's it. But trust me, this one won't go through. All right, we're almost at the end here. Couple of little cartoons right here for you. Joe Biden. What about all the new jobs I've created? I know. I'm working 3 of them. That's the reality. This administration loves to talk about employment numbers and jobs added. But they don't want to talk about the fact that people are working 3 jobs to support the craziness that's around us now. Inflation has taken everything up. Fuel costs are up. I can't afford to run my heater in the wintertime. My mom, who is older and thus really cold, is spending like $300 to $400 a month heating her home. And it's almost the same. We had to pay off our last electric bill in installments. How are we supposed to live here? Well, they don't want us to live here. They fucking hate us. And that's why this is so relevant. Human trafficking, fentanyl, crime, everything that Biden is turning his back on and allowing to just slip on by and doing nothing about as he pushes his green agenda to make shit more expensive on us is because of the boomer apocalypse. These people are going to be dying off soon. And they don't give a shit. All they want to do is remain in power a little while longer. They know that their age is a big knock on them. So they're buying off the young and the dumb by allowing everybody to do what everybody wants. For young people, utopia is doing whatever you want because they don't see the consequences. Very few of them see the consequences, I should say, because not all of them are in the same boat. I really apologize for doing that. But there are a lot of young and dumb college students out there who are of voting age, who are impressed when people like Gascon let criminals go. They think it's equity. They think it's fair. They think it makes up for the past. It makes them feel less guilty about being white. And I'm talking about the young. Now, when we're talking about the next group up, this includes millennials and Gen Xers. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a little bit ashamed of how some of my people act because, Gavin, I think, is a year younger than me. We're still in the same generation. But we were talking about this idea of the boomer apocalypse, my daughter and I. Talking about the old people and how they're starting to, well, I'll give you a good example, okay? My daughter has pink hair. My mom does not like my decision to allow my daughter to have pink hair. That is how the generations are viewing each other right now. The boomers are mad at the Gen Xers because of the way they're allowing the millennials to behave. It's an oversimplification, but I think they're basically just lighting the building on fire before they leave. So coming up, I think one of the things in this election that we should look at is that we should elect younger people. My daughter brought this up. We should elect younger people. And I'm talking, 30s, but 40s to 50s. We should elect younger people, not because they are hip, smart, or tech savvy, but because their decisions could bite them on the ass. And they will have to be there for the long-term consequences. My daughter said, if we are in the midst of a world war in 6 years, but Biden's dead in 5 years, does he really give a shit if he caused it? That's an oversimplification. Maybe. Maybe it's exactly right on the head. So think about that. Let's put people in power who are going to have to live with their consequences. And maybe it'll work. I don't know. I'm Kid Copious. Purple State Party, and so are you. Love one another. Don't be stupid. Drink plenty of water. And you know what? If you're going to watch the Super Bowl, just have a good time, man. And stay away from the cocaine. Later. Dance it out.